Before we dig in, a quick thank you to the sponsors ready to grow with the Soil Sisters. Tejas Tonic is the official beverage of the Texas Soil Sisters. We especially love that the hemp for Tejas Tonic is organically farmed in the Texas Hill Country, with farms in both Dripping Springs and Lukenbach, Texas. The Soil Sisters podcast is powered by B&P Electric. Whether you're building, remodeling, installing low-voltage landscape lighting, or in need of an inspection, B&P is your Central Texas electrical contractor. Find links to our sponsors in the podcast show notes or head over to txsoilsisters.co. You're listening to the Soil Sisters podcast, where we dig in on family farming and ranching, regenerative agriculture, healthy living, and planting seeds in our community. We invite you to listen, subscribe, and grow with the Soil Sisters. Hi, y'all. I'm Joanna Newting, joined by my blood, soul, and soil sister, Crystal. Welcome to the show.
Hello, sister. I'm supremely excited about our guest today, Matt Powers. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, we have been waiting to have Matt Powers on the show for a long time. He is a best-selling author, an educator, citizen scientist, and family guy who is helping gardeners, small and large-scale farmers and ranchers work with the soil, plants, microbes, and microscopy in new and regenerative ways that can be tracked and proven. Amen to that. Matt, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here, especially because what you all are doing. I mean, you're reaching the next generation, the rising generation with soil science. And in so many ways, soil science is a linchpin to the other branches of science and education. There's biology, there's chemistry, there's biochemistry, there's physics. It's all there. And so what you're really doing is anchoring their education. And so just thank you so much.
I love that term, anchoring. That is absolutely what we're doing.
It is, and you have provided the framework for that. And that means everything, because really it takes a special kind of person, and reading your book and then also having the teacher's guide. Man, just the way that you're talking about things is so important. It is today. It is right now. The time is ripe for this. And we're just so happy to be sharing it, really, truly.
Oh, thank you. It's pretty wild. I didn't realize, taking subbing jobs would lead to me being a teacher at a school that had no curriculum. And that's really the reason why I had to be an expert on creating standard-based curriculum, because they would ask, okay, what are you doing today? They'd drop in. I'd be like, oh, well, on the curriculum I created, that standard linked, I had to be on it. And so it's something that I just realized. And then you go to math class, they have a guide. They had it was online and stuff, but it was still a guide. They would be like, this week is this week is integers. I didn't have anything, so I had to create it all. So I just never expected that skill to be so rare, but most people just have it already ready-made. And I just was put into a position and more positions.
Yeah.
That's right. When they found out you could do it. And I'll tell you, what a beautiful gift that you were given, that it wasn't already made, because you might have followed that. And so the fact that you were able to have, first of all, that they were like, we recognize genius, or we're just lazy, whatever it was, who cares? But you got to do this, and that you had the opportunity to create that curriculum. So it was a gift.
Well, the thing is, it's you have Khan Academy, but Khan Academy started off focused on math, right? And so all the homeschool kids were doing Khan Academy after a lot of these public school charter schools to their whole program through it. So they just followed along Khan Academy and had a weekly thing they had to keep up with for math. But all the humanities, the history, the English, even health curriculum, the science, they didn't have science textbooks, but they definitely had standards, which kind of articulates what you got to teach. But we had to all make it up. So I wasn't alone. And that's why I got good at it, because it was all of us for the most, except for the math. And it was expected, And so I cut my teeth on that. I was a student teacher doing that. And then I was my full-time job doing
And
that.
what time frame are we talking here? What years was this?
We're talking, oh my word. So I retired from teaching in 2015. So I taught for 7 years. So starting in 2008, I started subbing. And I did that for 3 years in Madera County and Fresno County. I was a Fresno Unified School District, FUSD, certified sub. So that got you like premium choice, and you basically were an employee. It wasn't like a lot of these other subs, and so I got way more jobs because of it. Because basically, like, you have your credentials somewhat attached to that sub position, so you become a preferred one. I did like special ed. I did K-5. That was hard. And then I found like high school. I could do high school. That was the easiest for me. And I did everything. I did anything. And so they just kept calling me every day. And then at one point they were like, "You should work here." And I was like, "Really?" They were like, "You should work here." And I was like, "Oh, it's like that. All right. I guess I can get." And then 200 applicants applied for the same job, and I was the one that got it.
Yeah, you did.
All right. Well, since then, you have authored over 20 publications and 12 online courses. So you've kind of worked with all the age ranges. The subject matter that you
Mhm.
teach on now being soil science, education, permaculture, and microscopy. What is the student age range for this stuff?
Whew, I have an email from someone right now with an 8-year-old that they're wanting to like start on my K through 12 curriculum, and that is seed to table. So it's hands on, and I have videos and talking and demonstration and such, and pictures and curriculum and all that kind of stuff, and coloring books, but it's food. So they learn to cook. They do recipes with the food that they grow, and they save the seeds from the food that they grow. And so you can start at that age, and it's really immersion. And so all the words on the written page are more for the parent. You know what I mean? And then they can like colloquialize, say it in a way that, meets their child. But I have people in their 70s and 80s who are in my courses, and they're like, "Oh, I can't do that one, Matt. The back won't do that anymore." So I have everyone. It's very interesting. I started off and it was homeschool families, permaculture homesteaders, and mostly people 45 and up to 65. And then it's like the kids that I was teaching grew up, because I mean my students are now around 30. The older ones are at 30 or above 30 now. I'd have to do the math, but they're
They're
old. They have
all
families. Like, these kids have kids. You know what I mean? They're adults. And so that may be why there's a surge in youth interest, and then there's been a surge in farmer interest. So I had that like permaculture crowd, and now my crowd is pretty wild. I have, university professors and scientists and researchers from BYU, Idaho, and Stanford, and Harvard, and Cornell, and my curriculum is being used in colleges. And as you know, I designed it so that it's high school level. You know what I mean? I wrote it so it's open, so that, we could have this being an elective in high schools
which
everywhere.
we're getting to
And because
do
it is so,
now here in Lockhart with
yeah,
Lockhart ISD.
thanks to you. It's incredible. So yeah, folks, they're distributing my books and curriculum to teachers and schools in the local area at Texas that we are all from.
Yes.
So it's a superb honor, and it's just a delight, and very exciting, because, obviously, like, I created it with the high school standards, next generation science standards and national science education standards. So it's double standard aligned. And then I bundle the standards and objectives into projects so that it's way easier for teachers to teach and more exciting for children. Uh, Creating something, doing something with a long-term goal with a big bang at the end that shows an accomplishment, this is a win-win-win for everyone involved. And project-based learning, not only is it more engaging and fun, it's more authentic because nothing is isolated in life. Everything's bundled. So yeah, I taught at a student-centered project-based school, and I always focused on their passions, them doing it, them authentically experiencing it, whatever it may be. And with soil, it's so incredible because it's not just that you embody the experience, but the experience responds to you. So you're like doing the work, you're doing the hands-on, and then you're seeing not just that, like, you made good compost. No. You made good compost and you add it to the soil, and then like life responds.
Yeah.
And the trees, the plants, the animals, the microbes, like everything responds. And you're like, I did that.
Yeah.
And then you realize like you are a regenerative being. And when you're in alignment with the natural cycles, we always will make more soil. We always will make more of the foundation of what begets and promotes and protects life. And so soil is the linchpin to life, is what I often say. Linchpin is the spoke, the little pin that goes on the spoke that keeps the wheel on the wagon. So it's so fundamental for all the other sciences, for all of their life. I'm really, really excited.
We could just literally spend the whole episode thanking each other for what we're doing because I feel the same way. I'm like, Crystal, stop saying thank you, although I will say it again multiple times. But yeah, it's super fun. And like I said, the time is now. The interest is there, the awakening to the detriment of all the things in the air, the water, the food, all the stuff. More people are waking up to that and realizing. And then there's just this voice pretty clear from several different areas saying what we're saying. And so I think it's starting to resound more and more. And it just, the time is now.
Well, I think that we all innately sense that it is true. And I say this all the time to my students. I say this all the time on social media. But healthy soils create healthy plants, which create healthy animals and people. We know the opposite's true. Sick soils create sick plants, which create sick people and sick animals. And so because that's true, and we know it's true, it really highlights like we're missing the whole picture, because there's a microbiome to the soil, there's a microbiome to the plants, and there's a microbiome to our gut, and there's an overlap between them, which is a feedback loop with the natural world. When people say eat local, and you're calibrating, you're like, eat the local pollen, do this, get the, you're literally calibrating because the microbes on there are the microbes in your gut, and they got there because they're in the plants.
Yeah.
We're receiving information because these microbes change their genes all the time in response to their environment. They are literally changing their genes faster than reproduction.
Yeah.
So, and it's all in response to the environment. So then that is the truth about our gut and our stomachs too. As we sense and as we eat different foods, we are literally releasing different things in our body, for better or worse. And so these signals, they're trackable. These signals, we do DNA testing, we do microscopy, and we do mineral testing, and we can see using those modalities the whole story. Once I finish the Regenerative Soil trilogy, the next book is Regenerative Soil DNA. When I finish that, I'm going to write a book called Mind, Body, Soil, because even the way we think, even the way we feel can be tied to the soil. People say that the soil creates antidepressants. Well, there's actually compounds in the meat that we can track to specific fungi needing to be present. So all the benefits that we get from food, all these plant secondary metabolites, they're all microbially related.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like general. And I mean, rhizophagy is general, right? But these specific endophytes that create specific compounds, they're specific. So we're entering in a world where, the soil food web world is like, there's fungi, there's bacteria. Well, now we're like, well, we need Bacillus subtilis here. Oh, we need, a balance between streptomyces and the good fungi, not actinobacteria. We need a balance between those things, but we need streptomyces because it's an endophyte. So all these things are going to emerge. I mean, they're in my book, but the nuance between which crop is going to thrive in different ways. So the nuance, the timing, the amounts, the crop specific differences, those things have not been mapped out yet. And so the RSOIL database is the place where corn farmers are going to be able to hold up their test results before and after and go, wait a second. So you combined EM1 and IMOs, and now you have no nitrogen and phosphate fertilizers going in. You saved all that money and you're doing this instead. And your bushels are the same as mine, and your soil's way better every year now. And so they're going to be like, good, better, best. And someone's like, oh, I've been doing EM. I've been saving 50% on my nitrogen. Let's combine EM and IMO and let's get rid of the rest of the 50%, right? So it's going to cause this cascade of feedback between farmers, and that transparency, that community building is going to push all these recipes, all these specifics that we have down into, they all work, but some of them work a little bit better than others, and there's reasons why.
Yes.
And we'll see that with the database. And so, and it also is that this is how we get all the people sitting on the fence and all the people way far away from the fence.
Yeah.
Because when people way far away from the fence see the farmers making money and not spending money,
Exactly.
they're going to feel pretty sheepish or silly or dumb, you know, and they're going to switch.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people are using my book, Regenerative Soil, and doubling their yields just with the book.
Yeah.
People are taking my courses and, you know, saying it's life-changing. People are taking my Microscopy course and having amazing results. But we're just at the beginning. And I say that because, like, when we take a humble stance, a humus humble stance, right, with the soil, and let nature speak to us, we will find all these nuances, ranges of expression, ranges of treatment that are needed. And so there's going to be nuance that emerges if we can actually see all the tests across, because we've never done it before.
Yeah.
So that's really what I'm working on right now. I teach courses on the books, and the books are spreading, the word's spreading, but the database to host all the test results and to show that good, better, best so that everyone can move faster.
Yeah.
That's what we're working on in the background, because that's going to take everything to another level. And also all those students that are learning the language of soil will be able to look at that database and immediately understand what needs to happen, immediately understand what they can do.
Yes.
And so we need consultants. We need people to be operating these microscopes and helping these farmers, because the farmers actually rely a lot on consultants.
Yes. If you're working to build healthier soil and grow better food, every choice on your land matters, including how you manage weeds. And that's where Firehawk Bioherbicide comes in. Firehawk is a fast-acting, non-selective contact herbicide that controls many common broadleaf and grassy weeds. Its active ingredient is nonanoic acid, a fatty acid that works on contact by drying out unwanted green vegetation, with visible results in hours, leaving no residual weed control in the soil. From gardens and homesteads to vineyards and regenerative farms, Firehawk can be used for careful spot treatments around crops, landscapes, and non-crop areas. And now, Firehawk is available in super concentrate, giving growers flexible, high-performance weed control that mixes easily with water. Learn more at firehawkbioherbicide.com and use code SoilSisters15 to save 15% on your purchase. That's SoilSisters15 for 15% off at firehawkbioherbicide.com. One of the things you say a lot within your microscopy teaching is, if we don't look, we don't see. But this is something that is across the board. People just not being willing to look at what's going on, or not willing to do the soil test and do the things before they make some decisions on what they're going to plant. Or even in regenerative living, this is a mission we all three align on, is modeling and teaching regenerative living. And so I feel like, even though it's a very simple statement, if we don't look, we don't see. It's huge.
I think that what you're touching upon is something that is hard for our whole community, because we want to say that's easier. But if we want people to be healthy, there's aspects to that aren't easy, right? There's aspects that shouldn't be easy. You should sweat. You should build muscle. You should work out. And working out is never like, wow, that was so easy. No, go back in, right? And so it's the same thing with our mind. Same thing with a lot of things. It's like the more work and self-discipline that we put into things, we get incredible things out of them. So it's easier in some ways, but other ways it does require work, and it does require learning. You got to learn and understand this stuff to apply it right. You can, some people, back in the day thought they could just do compost, and compost was all the same. And you have people doing hot compost. Hot compost is usually pH 8. They've got these folks building, like you guys talk about cannabis sometimes, right? So cannabis, they're building their soils most often. And then if they're putting in pH 8, 30%, right, compost as part of that mix, they're going to skew it. And then if they're doing biochar, that's pH 9, they're going to skew it. And so simple tests, and I want us to do microscopy, but if you get a phosphate test, a nitrogen test, and a pH test that you can do at home, you can cover a lot of bases. Because if you have too many nitrates in your compost, your plant's going to have giant cells that it takes 4 times as much water to process nitrates. So they're going to be giant water-filled cells that are prone to pest, disease, and fungal blight. And you'll have these like giant vegetative growth, huge green, dark green plants, and no fruit, no flowers. And then they just get destroyed. And then the weeds at the same time grow crazy. So nitrates aren't good. And then if we eat nitrates, you have nitrates in your water, you get blue baby syndrome. Nitrates are bad hard on the body, not healthy. And then phosphates, if you have phosphates that are in your soil because you've been adding it every year, they're desiccating your soil organic matter, turning into little like basically inorganic rock. They become like almost mineralized as they combine with phosphate, and then they inhibit mycorrhizal fungi. Now, if your compost is super high in phosphate, why would you add it to your transplants when you're doing mycorrhizal fungi? And that's the thing. Simple tests prevent disaster. And so if you have just some knowledge, I did that same phosphate test and I calibrated it to the M3 test from the university or the Haney test, you can go all the way,
So tell me what this blue pack that you're holding, what is this?
Oh, this is a Lamont,
Okay.
and it's just a simple turf and garden soil test, pH, nitrate, and phosphate, and it has potassium, but
Excellent.
I never use the potassium, so I'm like collecting the potassium reagent. But my point is that what I discovered is none of these tests exclude you. Everyone's like, oh, microscopy, testing, that sounds hard and expensive. It's like, once you acquire this, it's made of metal.
Yeah.
And you keep it clean, and it will stay with you for decades and decades, and you could probably hand
He's
it off to your
patting his
kids.
microscope right now, y'all, if you're listening.
Yeah, and it's just like a fountain pen where you break the nib, you could buy a new nib.
Yeah.
If these get scratched, I just put another one on.
Yeah.
They unscrew. If this gets like burnt out, this camera, I just put on another one.
Yeah.
I never use the eyepieces. I connect to a screen because the eyepieces make you blind over time. They ruin your eyes. This is why all the trope is like the lab coat with the glasses. They have glasses because the thing ruined their eyes.
I can relate to that. So I'm glad to hear you say it. I'm like, am I something wrong with me? Because this is so hard to like.
Don't do it. Okay. Don't do it.
I have one.
Okay.
I have a camera.
My students. Okay. So I discovered their medical papers about it. And I was like, I knew it. This is why I'm getting headaches. I'm not like bad at this.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And I'm like, and then I discovered a whole world of people being like, well, after 20 minutes, I do get a blistering headache. And then they're all like afraid to admit it. And I'm like, ah! So I tell all my students, you want to do this for hours, this is how you do it. You have it set up so that you can just look at it in 4K, because it's a 4K camera on a 4K screen. And if you think about the past, part of the reason why everything was so screwed up in soil microscopy was everyone was like, trust me, bro. Because there was no camera. And it was all like, oh yeah, I saw that last week. Mine was bigger. Right? The egoic stuff in the university science is out of control. And so this erases that. Transparency always wins.
Yeah.
Because the truth always wins with transparency. Then nuance emerges, good, better, best emerges when you set everything up in alignment across large groups. I was a plant breeder and a seed saver for a long, long time in permaculture. And then I was a spokesperson for Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds for a while.
Love it.
And their seed expert for a bit. Their main guy retired and I like got pushed in the position and I was like, okay. But when you go up to scale, everything emerges. So you grow 1,000 of that amaranth and you get the rogues, you get throwbacks, you get some crazy cool things that happen. So it's the same thing when we go up in scale with numbers, and also just comparisons of what's actually, what really works. How does nature really work, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, I'm really excited because we know so much. Gen Ag is making more money when people figure it out.
Yes.
You know, like they are making more money, but the transition mostly is up here.
It is a mental game.
And so there's a lot of people wanting to do it. They see the people and they try to do it, but they don't understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't work and then they get pissed. So what I've tried to do is really break it down, the micro to macro to action, and chop off all the other stuff that doesn't actually influence decision making. So someone the other day was like, tell me about the brains of nematodes. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know about the brain, but I don't care, because a brain of a nematode is never going to influence how a farmer makes a decision.
Yeah.
You know, but in soil food web school folks, Elaine Ingham's training, you know, and all, she's had like 5 different soil food web schools. So depending on which one you're part of, all of them are going to tell you that, you know, these mouth parts mean this. And so you have a fungal feeder mouth part, you have a bacterial feeding mouth part. The problem is dimorphic mouth parts are part of nematodes. Dimorphic, meaning they morph their mouths in accordance to what's available. So there's food changes up, their mouths change. And then if there's too many boys, the women turn into predators. And we see this in insects all the time, where the female will consume the male and be much larger. We see this with spiders. We see this with praying mantises, where the females are larger, males are small, and they get consumed. This happens with nematodes. Yeah. And then sometimes the mouth changes and they have no idea why. And I suspect that they have a sense of taste or smell, and that they're sensing a change that's on the horizon in their environment. And we can't see taste and smell with a microscope. So, I mean, the thing about a microscope, everyone's like, ooh, a microscope, ooh, you know, or a microscope, I don't know. A microscope just makes things bigger. That's really what it does. I mean, this is just the inside of a nodule of rhizobia. So this is a nitrogen fixing nodule. This is the inside, and those are the cells which push out the oxygen. And so it's just nitrogen, and then they can provide to the plant. So we're just making things bigger. And just like the doctor would if he was, you know, checking you for parasites, or your vet would be checking stool, you know, your animal for parasites, a microscope is incredibly useful. And yeah, it's been pretty incredible. It felt unbelievable for a long time. And I just have had to remind myself to like, I'm walking into this, I'm stepping into this. You're the person to do this. I started doing light from the side, and the people who create microscopes were like, what are you doing now? And I'm like, oh, I wanted to see roots from on top. And so I did the light from the side, like a child talking. And they were like, we have never heard of this before. And I was like, oh, wow. And then they made an invention
Oh yeah.
to do what I do with my hand with a little flashlight. And so I'm like, okay, wow. Okay. So we have a lot of linear thinkers here.
Yeah.
And I am like the creative type. I was a musician. I only thought I would be a musician forever. And I was a songwriter. And so I have been able to kind of show up to this space and have breakthrough after breakthrough, innovation after innovation. And a huge part of it is I read a lot. And I go to a lot of different people and in humility say, hey, I don't understand this. You want to explain it to me? And Dr. James White, the mycologist, amazing mycologist at Rutgers University that teaches a lot of people about rhizophagy, Dr. Olivia Husson, John Kempf, Michael Phillips, my original soil mentor, Lane Ingham, they all contributed and helped me along the way. So I feel incredibly grateful to be here and to be able to provide all of this. But I stand on the shoulders of giants, and it was because of all these people that helped me that I was able to think that broadly.
Well, and I love that we're sharing this information with kids that are going to be able to even move on top of that, like expand that and stand on these shoulders that you have grown, and just teaching them. Because if we learned when we were kids this stuff, then it wouldn't be anything to grow beyond that.
And so many kids are not in nature enough, and so that they need this, that often need this extra lens to see the things that they would have if they were bored as children outside. They would see that, like I have seen the fourth phase water thing where you see a raindrop skitter on top of other water many times. So when Gerald Pollack told me about that, I was like, yeah, of course I've seen that. And he was like, oh, good. And it kept going. And I was like, this is very normal. Biofilms on things, that layer of like clarity. Like I've seen that affect so many different places. Like you see those kinds of things. I mean, it's also the way ice forms on certain surfaces, you know what I mean, in water, you know what I mean? And so I just feel really fortunate that I was able to have the teacher's education that I could be summative about it. Cause that's really what I did, was take all these disparate things and combine them in such a way that I could be summative, and it could go micro to macro, small to big.
So a lot of people have an aha moment that gets them to this level of enthusiasm and excitement about regenerative agriculture. Was yours just like, I'm having to put these puzzle pieces together, and so you just kind of ended up here, or was there a pivotal moment for you?
So I have those kinds of moments all the time. I am a meditator and a prayerful person. I read the scriptures every morning. I try to meditate every day, and I visualize all these things. And so I've had part of the reason why I've written over 24 different books in the past 10 years is because of that. And so I've had a bunch of epiphanies, like even during the Kickstarter for Regenerative Soil Microscopy, that's when I came up with manual lighting, manual meaning the hand, right? And that was also when I came up with the database idea, because I was like, I have so many pictures. What am I going to do with them all? I really need to organize them. And I was like, everyone needs to organize them. We all have this problem. I want to see your results. Whoa. And then I was like, database. So, because there's nothing like that exists. And I can tell you the format in which I was thinking doesn't exist either. And I was like, it's just a timeline, and then iterates out sideways. Like as you go down through time, and then you have the elements, and doesn't exist. But doesn't that seem intuitive? So it's been pretty wild. I do think a big part of it is meditation. I think that clearing the mind allows to receive better. And so yeah, I've got a lot of practices, high performance practices. I've got some things I do that probably a lot of people do, like, morning scripture study, that kind of thing. But epiphany I had was I was wondering about which book to write. I put a poll out there and everyone said soil. And I was like, well, I guess I could take that 45-page chapter I did with Elaine and add more recipes to it and just beef it up a bit. All right. And then I was like, and then it like arrived on me as soon as like I agreed to do that, like in a meditation. I was like, the book's name is Regenerative Soil. And I was like, because it was originally Permaculture Soil Science and Solutions. I could have had more words on there, but I guess, I got tired. But it was just like Regenerative Soil. And I immediately knew that was a title someone else would name their book if I didn't name my book that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a book that has to happen. And then I started asking questions like, well, it's a book that has to happen. I can see the book and it almost already exists. So what's in the book? And I was like, well, it would have the chemistry. And I was like, I don't know chemistry. What are you talking about? And so I was like suddenly like mortified because I realized I couldn't do just like a rehash of like Elaine Ingham thing. And I realized I really needed to understand the chemistry side. And I kind of went through this transformation period. The lockdowns for COVID began, and I wrote Regenerative Soil in 12 months.
Sweet.
In 2020.
And a beefy book.
Yes, it is.
And that was a hard time.
I believe it.
So it was like my escape. Yeah, we were in California.
I was in California then.
There's a reason we're in Texas.
Yeah.
I was like, come home, sister.
Fun.
Get on back to Texas.
Yeah. Ay. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why we're here. And I knew it was something that was special. Like I immediately knew that it was going to be something special. I didn't know it would be a bestseller. It became a bestseller. And now it's wild is it's like, I'll be looking at the soil science top 100 and like the permaculture student 2 will like wander in there. I'll be like, what are you doing in here? I'll have like 5 on the top 100 at times now. And it's just because that regenerative soil book became so popular. It's helped so many people because of what I did was it was the first time that the cycles were ever visualized into diagrams that were of the actual thing. So let me just show what I mean by that. So this is the hydrogen cycle. And if you notice, it's the heart of photosynthesis here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it's also pH. And you can see the entire thing, like hydroxide, protons, hydrogen protons. Like you can see it all here and understand immediately acidic and alkaline. And like basically the thing that all plants face. And then like the nitrogen cycle. No one had ever made these things anchored like this. And there's a reason why. Universities, they're teaching environmental science. So what is that? Oh, we want to know the toxins and heavy metals and the runoff that's leaching off from the farm. So phosphate and nitrate. And that's it, right? So that's all they did.
Yeah.
So you look at, and then at the graduate school level, they're not like artistic. So it's white boxes with letters or symbols and then like a key at the bottom, like a legend. And you're like, A is nematode, B, protozoa, C, and you have to make meaning with this.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I see what you did there. You guaranteed no one will understand.
Exactly.
So I made pictures for myself, and then I started making all these like cycle images for myself to understand. And I started writing out long format, and I was like, Matt, can you repeat the past 3 pages? And I was like, no. And then I was like, I have to do it with a picture so I can use the picture because like the picture will anchor it all and show it all. And so I turned all these graduate school blobs of text into images and these crazy diagrams that don't show anything into images. And then the ag folk, you know, they were worried about their specific NPK, mostly calcium, magnesium, you know, things that you know. And those charts mostly existed. But when I asked, how did it happen in nature? How does it work in nature? How did soils form in the first place? All these extra arrows appeared on these charts. And I mean, like, I'm asking these questions to myself. Obviously, now when you say those things, I asked, people think you're asking ChatGPT or something. Those things didn't exist in 2020.
Exactly.
So I'm literally like brainstorming and then writing these questions down and talking them over with experts, scientists, and then just reading and reading and reading and printing it out and organizing it into like handy dandy binders where, you know, amoeba of uncertain affinities. Did you see that?
Yeah, I would fall asleep before I finished the first page.
Oh, come on. They sound mysterious. Sounds like you might be tall, dark, and handsome. Come on.
Maybe that's my problem.
Joanna,
But-
you might want to meet one of those.
No.
So anyway, I'm just saying, like, I have it all printed out. I have it all highlighted. I have it all actually like as a living library, because the internet has this uncanny ability to
Isn't
disappear
that
things.
interesting?
Or you search the same exact keywords you searched yesterday, and the websites are different when they come up. And you can't find the website you found yesterday, and then you go back to your history, you click on it, it's there.
Yeah.
It was there, but it just doesn't show up anymore. It is annoying.
Yeah.
Because you remember the thing. And so I always print it out and I organize it and categorize it, because that's the only way I can actually find those things again. I was old school about it. I had this epiphany that this book was the one, and it opened all these doors. Once I finished Regenerative Soil and it was viral, I knew I had to do microscopy. I got a microscope. Within months, I was creating images that Dr. James F. White, who's a microscopist, was like, you're going to be professional in a few more months. And I was like, really? He was like, yes. And I was like, okay. And so I kind of just workshopped and kept it quiet. And then I wrote a 60-page draft of my 275-page book and did a Kickstarter. It hit $86,000. And like, but this all goes back to that moment where I had that epiphany. When I asked literally my audience, I asked them what they wanted, and they said soil book. And then I do my meditation, my visualization, and I was like, I'm going to do something easy. And the answer I got was back like, no. I'm going to give you a gift and an opportunity to work really, really hard, and you're going to love it. And that's what I was given. And so ever since that moment, my life has kind of just taken off, and it's been wild.
Well, I cannot imagine the research that you had to do for this book. I'm not even kidding. I literally saw how thick that binder was. That's probably just one of many, because I have read it. I'm through the middle part of the recipes, but I've read the whole book. I'm going to need to read it 3 or 4 times. Exactly. I know, because I feel as I'm reading this, I can see the detail and the research that you've put into that. Yes, that looks like my stuff.
We're getting a show and tell right
this
now.
is the small shelf. This is the small shelf.
Yeah.
That room is filled with binders. Yeah. And as my wife like tries to like cleanse us all from mold and everything, she's like, paper is moldy. And she looks at all my paper and she's like, you know, and I just feel bad because I can't get rid of it,
Yeah.
you know.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a couple of practical questions going back to earlier.
Let's do it.
So when you're talking about you had your trusty kit and we're looking at pH and phosphorus and whatnot, how often, because I know this is going to differ. So we have our gardener sect and then we have our farmers ranchers. How often are we doing this testing?
So if you're going to put something in, you should test it, right? If you're going to add something to your soil, you should know where it stands. Like mycorrhizal inoculant, you could look at it with this light right here, and this light will tell you if the mycorrhizal inoculant is propagules and if they're inoculated or not. Propagules meaning roots that have mycorrhizal fungi in them. That's the best. You don't want spores because you don't know when the spore is going to pop. The root grows way fast, and the spores can sometimes take time. So You want propagules. You can vet your inoculant before you use it, and then you can look at your things afterwards and vet that. So in terms of your testing, I would do at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season, so that you see the effects of the actions you took. And so what is the season? Well, I would do early spring and I would do early fall. And then you're catching the beginning, the ending of both seasons, right? So your fall cover crop season, you get to see and depending on where you live in America and depending on how you're farming, your season might be quirky, right? You might be in Idaho. You might have that skip year thing that you guys do. There's a lot to this, right? But you want to see the effects of your actions because that will affect your choices. So you're always going to want to take a test before you do something and then take a test after. Now, the more money you have involved, the more testing you can do so that you guarantee the end result. So you might be testing, when you put in an inoculant, 7 to 10 days later, you're testing under that light, looking at the roots of your seedlings because they should glow. So it's quite simple, but you want to just apply that thinking. And so if you have the budget and if it's worth it, plant sap analysis, they're doing that sometimes biweekly. And they're doing many, many tests because they're mapping out the failure points. So they're like, wow, on week 12, when there's transitioning, you have a dip in calcium, and this is where those fungal blights get in. This is where you have this happening. So we're going to do a water-soluble foliar spray at that time period, tighten up all those junctures. And if you're like, well, the water-soluble calcium was okay, all right, we're going to add water-soluble calcium with fermented silicates, silicon, boron, and calcium make up the cell walls. So depending on what you're low in, you're going to want to supplement for that. And then they all use each other up. So like the junctions between the calcium are boron and silicon. So having that in there will help too. Water soluble calcium could be enough if you have enough boron in your soil and if you have enough microbes, because the microbes are going to break the silicates, the clay sands and silts down into the thing that creates that structural integrity in your cell wall.
I can recognize how if you are a gardener and you're trying different things to test more often. But if you are a farmer and you've got, you've planted 100 acres of something, like it makes sense that it'd be like beginning of the season, end of season, keep it simple with the farmers. Is there any time where you're like, you might go in there?
Depends on the farmer with money. It depends about how much of a cash crop it is. I mean, in the cannabis world, they can do plant sap tests. They can do all these different things because at the end of the day, there's enough money coming in that it justifies that because then they can edge everyone out.
Poor farmers, cannabis farmers don't have that luxury anymore.
I know. Well, there's definitely a model that went into effect, the exploitation model that they used legislation. But this is also historically, I was a history teacher, this is how they do it. They let industries build up and be independent, and then they move in and gobble up those ideas and just 10,000 exit, because they have a budget to 10,000 exit. And what do we get? We get, crappy medicine and we lose all those mom and pops and all. Yeah. So anyway, that's a different story. But my point is that like in viticulture, they're doing a lot more testing than they are in wheat because of this, right? So wheat, beginning, end of the season, they're not doing plant sap analysis, you know what I mean? But something like grapes, some of these companies, it's hundreds of millions of dollars in just grapes. And so some of them can afford to do plant sap analysis and go that deep. And that's sometimes weekly. I know of people who have, 70 scientists on staff and full labs for ag. So people are doing it. And you could be a gardener and have time and do it too. The way I teach is pretty streamlined. Like the thing is, if you go to a university right now and learn mycorrhizal fungi, they're going to make you do tons of stains, tons of dyes and rinsing and all this stuff and create an artificial image in order to see it. And so what I do is I take the root, I don't rinse it, I put it under the microscope and I flip that light on and I don't do anything else. So how fast can I? It's fast. I can literally take a root and put it under and rotate and then look at all the roots on the branch of roots and just put it in there and look, put it in there and look. And a good inoculation with our Arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, which is the primary one we're looking at, over 90% of plants do it, up to 95% potentially. They glow, they autofluoresce in this lighting. So you simply put it on there, you look for the glow, but you also look for hyphae, possibly spores. And so like you can see the morphology of the way mycorrhizal fungi acts. You can see the phosphate that it brings in. You can see the rate at which it brings in. And we know the phosphate that it's bringing in is also reducing nitrogen at the same time in order to form that phosphate. So you know you have a biofertilizing situation that is major. That's why these things can go 30 to 40%. And so just this alone, I can just look at it. And so it's not long. It's not hard. It's quite fast.
What I'm hearing is
And
a microscope is an excellent investment for a gardener or farmer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not hard. That's the thing, is it's about the hard part's comprehension and not us making assumptions. So there's a lot of people online who have been trained to make assumptions. And when you talk to someone who's been teaching over 40 years and they speak in non-definitives, you're like, okay, but you're the one who discovered that, right? And they're like, oh yeah. But you know, you can't test every plant. And I'm like, whoa, that's true, right? We really can't test every plant. We can't test every soil. So being humble is the way we learn more and are open to like seeing those things if they exist. Because if we say they don't exist, we often blind ourselves to them. So I just really appreciate like the open-mindedness of so many of the people that mentored me in this space.
Well, I know none of this stuff. So for me, like having the book, and I have a feeling that a lot of people that listen to this podcast will feel like this talk is over their head. And that is the value of having the regenerative soil book, the things that you're talking about and the way that you have laid it out. My goal mostly for this conversation is to make sure people understand your heightened level of intelligence around soil science and the value of the textbooks that you've created to help people like me that aren't experts who know I want to grow regeneratively. I know this stuff is important, but how can I be empowered to do it myself and not to spend a tubload of money sending soil samples in consistently or trying a bunch of products that don't necessarily work? Yes, DIY. This is what you are empowering folks to do. So
I really appreciate that because, you know, I really wrote the book so that anyone could just open the book and just use the book. And some people say that I'm a good teacher in person. Some people say I'm a good speaker, but I know that I'm a better writer. Like I know I'm better at creating curriculum than I am at anything else. And like that's the thing, is it's like people have taken this book, never taken a class with me and done it. They've gone and done it, you know. And the microscopy book has how to do it in it. It has case profiles, it has microbial profiles. But I have folks meet in groups sharing their microscope cameras over Zoom, and we train in real time. I answer Q&A in real time with their actual microscopes. So there's definitely benefits to joining us live and being able to ask me questions live, of course. And it's a lifetime community. So folks can check that out. But the books themselves, they are definitely the thing that I am most proud of because that's, you know, I was always wanted to be a writer. That was like what I went to school for.
love that.
I love that. When I opened the book and I saw that you started with the minerals, I was so happy because I understand the microbes. Like we have to have the microbes, but the microbes cycle the minerals. Like,
Right?
where do these come from? How do we get them? And what are each of them? What are they good for? I was just like, yes, it was fantastic. So, man, I recommend it completely. And when I took one of the microbes classes where we're identifying, because I can look at my soil and generally see things and be like, oh, I don't see any bad things, or maybe there's just one little ciliate running around in here, but I see things, but I need more familiarity. And I just really appreciated being able to look at your screen and you're like, see this, and here's what this is. And anyway, it's so helpful because we're all kind of out here on our own, and that was part of my issue with the online aspect of this classwork. I'm old enough that I need human connection, that I want to sit and talk about what I'm looking at. And so I actually did get that from some of the videos that I've watched of yours. So I really appreciated that aspect of it, of being able to just look at it together, in which I could have had my microscope out and, looking at my own stuff. But yeah, doing that in class, in one of your online classes, that's really cool.
Well, thank you for being part of that.
If you're ready to nerd out with Matt Powers on soil, you can also catch him. He's got his own podcast called A Regenerative Future with Matt Powers. Check that out. If you're way over my head and this has not satiated you, there is more on Matt Powers' channel, I promise. And also, Matt is offering the Soil Sisters listeners a 3-part webinar series for free on breakthroughs in soil microscopy with a free soil biology poster download. Matt, is it one of your illustrations?
They're actual pictures. So regenerative soil is a composite of real pictures and cartoons. And I say cartoons, but they're not exaggerated. I try to keep them as accurate as possible, but also fun. But the second book is all just microscopy images that I've taken.
Fun.
I love it.
Yeah, you can have that on your wall behind your microscope. Check yourself.
So for anyone that's looking through a microscope and wondering, what is this? I want to look through picture, that is that. So it's very helpful, supremely helpful.
Love it.
Well, Matt, is there anything that we didn't ask you that you want to plug, share, circle back to before we wrap things up?
Yeah, probably the website. I just realized I didn't say the website. So regenerativesoilmicroscopy.com. And if you're just interested in the books, in introductory courses, I've got those too. So if you go to regenerativesoilscience.com, that will be there. I start off at the basis. I was a 10th grade English teacher. So that it's all written in that level. So it's really easy to read, designed with a lot of pictures so anyone can get involved. I know when I do these interviews, there's so many places I go in all these tangents because everything's interconnected. But when I have 20 weeks of time, because remember I was a public school teacher, 182 days, right? So for 20 weeks of time, I can actually do it all. It's like a full semester, the timing of it. I get to really time it all and pace it all out and go through it all, because everything does, stack on each other in our comprehension. And then we build those bridges between them. And then I drop the news that, it's all happening at the same time. And it's like, wait, so it's just a lot of fun.
Next. If you want to dip your toe into what Matt Powers is all about, you can find him on social, Instagram, Facebook, and X at Matt Powers Soil. Matt, we adore you. We're so happy to be living in the same neck of the woods, and we're excited to keep you up to date on what we're doing with these school programs. And maybe you have time and you just want to drop in on the kids and see what's going on. We would welcome that as well.
Let's do it.
Sis, anything you want to say?
My parting words. I love you. I thank you so much. I'm super excited to know you and to get to know you better throughout our journey together, bringing regenerative soil information, science to kids and people all over the world. So
thank you both.
Connect with the Soil Sisters at txsoilsisters.co. Submit questions, guest or show ideas, and sponsorship inquiries. The Soil Sisters podcast was created and produced by Joanna Nuding. Editing and sound design are in the capable hands of the PodConnects Podcast Network.